Hello, welcome to Introduction to Psychology. I'm Stephen Bishop, and our topic for today is learning. When you look at these two pictures, one of a teddy bear and one of a possum, you probably make associations with those. You can look at the teddy bear and think, oh, how cute and cuddly, because you were raised with a teddy bear. You can look at the opossum and think, oh my God, what a ugly creature, because for some reason you were afraid of rats or something that looked like a possum. So what is learning? Learning is any relatively permanent change in behavior brought about by experience or practice. Some learning seems to occur almost spontaneously, like an infant learning to walk. Other learning takes obviously more practice, like a gymnast. Some learning is not even visible, like learning the concept of learning, for instance. A particular type of learning we're going to cover in this lesson is associative learning. And that's learning that occurs when we pair two events together. An example would be going to the dentist. The first time you go to a dentist, you probably don't know much about it. But if you go in there and have a great experience, then you learn that going to the dentist is a good experience. If you go in there and you have to have your teeth scraped and drilled, and you learn that a dentist is associated with pain, then going to the dentist is a much different experience for you. What do you associate with a hamburger? If you're like most people, it's probably not a sexy woman. But that's exactly what advertisers want you to associate with a hamburger.
I love going all natural. It just makes me feel better. Nothing between me and my 100% all natural, juicy, grass-fed beef.
Introducing the all-natural burger, the first ever in fast food, with no antibiotics, no added hormones, and no steroids.
What the advertisers are hoping is after repeatedly watching that commercial, you'll start to associate the sexy experience with eating a hamburger. This is an example of classical conditioning. Ivan Pavlov is the first scientist who coined this phrase, classical conditioning.
Pavlov's aim was to discover what caused saliva to flow. He rerouted the salivary ducts to the outside of his dog's cheek so that he could collect and measure the spittle. After taking many measurements of spittle, he confirmed that the dogs drooled automatically when their tongues touched food. He erected screens so that the dogs couldn't see what was going on. Before passing meat through the hatch, he introduced a stimulus that was totally unrelated to feeding. A ticking metronome. At first, the dog dripped saliva into its cheek tube only when the food appeared. But after a number of trials, the dog began to connect the ticking with the arrival of meat. Soon the sound alone made the dog drool. Eventually, the dog salivated as much to the ticking itself as it did originally to the presentation of food.
Homer, идите сюда. Что я говорил?
He called this new response the conditioned reflex. Whatever the stimulus, his dogs could soon be conditioned to produce saliva. Pavlov believed that he had discovered how animals learned, even in the wild.
So classical conditioning is a process in which a neutral stimulus becomes associated with a meaningful stimulus and acquires the capacity to elicit a similar response. In this case, the conditioned stimulus is food. The conditioned response is the dog salivating. If we pair a neutral stimulus like a light bulb or a bell with a conditioned stimulus, then soon the dog will salivate in response to those two stimuli, and he will learn to salivate to the bell or the light even without the presentation of food. Let's take another example. How might we learn to become afraid of dogs, for instance? Normally when an infant or a child is shown a dog, they have no response or just a curious response. But what happened if you were younger and a large German Shepherd bit you very hard? And now you're afraid of a German Shepherd. Let's look at that situation and apply the principles of classical conditioning. So first of all, you get bit by a German Shepherd. The bite from the German Shepherd is an unconditioned stimulus that results in pain from the bite. So your pain from the bite would now be considered an unconditioned response. Anytime you get bit, you have pain. So that's the unconditioned stimulus, unconditioned response. But now that pain you associate with just the sight of German Shepherds. So now the sight of German Shepherds is a conditioned stimulus that makes you afraid of German Shepherds, which is the conditioned response, because you associate German Shepherds with that pain from the bite. Have you been conditioned? Well, we all have. Not only do advertisers try to condition us by associating sex with their product, many of us have been conditioned to hate math because of a math teacher who made math uninteresting or scary. So from now on, we think, oh, we're not good at math, and even the sight of math and the thought of math makes us anxious. What about gambling? Gambling, again, we get a positive reward occasionally. We put in money, pull the slot, nothing happens, but every once in a while we win the reward. Now what happens if we stop pairing the conditioned stimulus with the unconditioned stimulus? So if we stop pairing the bell with food, eventually that response is going to disappear. That's called extinction. If you look down here on the curve, after many trials, when we pair a bell with food, the strength of that stimulus, that conditioned response, starts to increase. The more we pair the bell with food, the stronger the response. But what happens at the top of this when we stop pairing food with a bell? Eventually that response is going to get weaker and weaker until it's totally extinguished. An interesting phenomena is after a while of a response being extinguished, it will reoccur again strongly, just spontaneously. That's called spontaneous recovery. Again, if no food is presented, then eventually that response will go ahead and disappear completely. Let's see what you remember. Your dog was scratched by a cat. Now he's afraid of all furry animals. What principle is related to that? If you said generalization, you're correct. Your dog was trained to roll over. After 3 months, you give him a command to roll over, and he just sits there and looks at you. What principle is that? If you say extinction, again, you are correct. Another classical experiment in psychology is the little Albert experiment. John Watson was trying to figure out what causes phobias. And a phobia is an intense, irrational fear of an object or situation that poses little actual danger. We learned about the amygdala and the fear response in a previous lesson. Phobias are linked to our amygdala response. Let's watch a video about the little Albert experience.
In the early part of the 20th century, psychologists John Watson and Rosalie Rayner set out to teach a baby boy called Little Albert to fear white rats using the principle of classical conditioning. This is a film of their work. The film shows several phases of their study. First, as you see here, the investigators demonstrated that prior to conditioning, Little Albert had no fears of any animals, including, of course, white rats.
As you see in this video, when little Albert was first exposed to a white rat, he was just curious. The same occurred when he was exposed to a rabbit.
Watson and Rayner then sought to teach Albert to fear white rats through classical conditioning. In the conditioning phase of the study, which was not filmed, the investigators struck a steel bar with a hammer whenever Albert reached for a rat, making a very loud noise that greatly upset and frightened Albert. After 6 such pairings of the loud noise and the rat, it was believed that the boy had been conditioned to fear white rats. That is, Albert was now expected to react fearfully to white rats, whether the rats were paired with loud noises or not. In this next film sequence, we see Albert interacting with a white rat after the conditioning process. The investigators believed that the child's reaction during this trial demonstrated his newly acquired fear of white rats. Finally, the investigators expected that little Albert's conditioned fear of white rats would generalize to stimuli that were similar in key ways to a white rat. In this film segment, they were trying to demonstrate that the child now also reacted fearfully to similar objects, such as a rabbit, a dog, a furry object, and a white mask worn by Watson himself.
That video clearly shows classical conditioning to teach little Albert to fear animals. It also shows the process of generalization. Classical conditioning can also be used to help people overcome their fears. That's the process used in counter-conditioning or systematic desensitization. That's a therapeutic technique used by psychologists to help people overcome their fears by relaxing the patient and gradually introducing them to a hierarchy of fears from least fearful to most fearful. An example would be helping somebody overcome fear of flying by first letting them watch videos of airplanes when they're listening to classical music, calming them down, giving them relaxation techniques, taking them into the airport, and then upping the ante, bringing them into an airplane, and then finally relaxing them while they're in flight. In this lesson, we learned about classical conditioning, which is the process of associating 2 stimuli, one stimuli that normally causes a response with another stimuli that doesn't normally cause a response, but we have to learn that response. In our next lesson, we're going to talk about the different types of conditioning, operant conditioning. And operant conditioning is associating a reward with a consequence.